Great. As I was mentioning, what I can do, if y'all are comfortable with this, is I can transfer over hosting duties to either one of you, and then I can pop off the Zoom. Alternatively, if you're more comfortable with it, I can also hang on through the Zoom in case there's any other technical issues or we need to drag some folks over, whatever you're comfortable with.
I think I'd like you to hold for a second because I think, Marcus, we've probably got to talk about a little bit about, I know Natasha and Toyin aren't able to join us, but, we have a wider group meeting and I would just like to understand between now and then, I know we have open meeting laws, so we have to meet publicly being via Zoom, but I would like to have something together, at least in draft form, for us to have a little progress for next week. So, Miles, since you're still on, right? I know that there was a toolkit that both Katie or Kate had sent out as an example from another area, but
Bentley?
overall, go ahead, Marcus. Can you hear me?
I think it was at Bentley. Is that what it was
Right.
from? Or somewhere
Right.
else? Or Miles, you're not sure?
I am unaware of this. I apologize. I can try doing some digging.
I can try to figure it out.
No worries. I'll tell you in a second. She sent 2 resources out for race equity, a race equity 101 program. I believe one of them is there's actually 2. One is local and regional government alliance on race equity toolkit that was put together by several affiliations, the Haas Institute and CSI, which is a Center for Social Inclusion, along with the Racial Equity Alliance. And then there was another kind of nice overview that was put together for equity impact review and processes. So, I think the question for us, Miles, is if you can lay some framework in terms of, Natasha, hi, welcome.
Hi, sorry that I'm late.
No worries, we're just getting going.
Okay.
Miles, if you can lay for us kind of what, if right, kind of Katie's vision in terms of what they're looking for from these working committees.
So Jay, I don't want to speak on something that I don't feel qualified to, and on this one, unfortunately, I don't. I'm happy to look up some documents, take notes, or take requests, but unfortunately, I don't have those on hand.
Okay, no worries.
So what I remember gathering or from talking about it, what was said is that basically our group is trying to come up with ways to, I think, kind of measure or toolkits that the people that have adopted the new RE vision statement and guiding principles to kind of hold themselves accountable to the standard or, the questions when we talk about equity and equality and inclusion in the way that they run their groups and the way that they, put out bids to different places when it comes to building, when it comes to, I think, a plethora of different things. We're just trying to get the nuts and bolts of how we measure that. I think this group is for, and the other one's a little bit different from what I remember, but Natasha or Jay, I could be wrong, but that's kind of what I'm envisioning is what our purpose is as far as that. I think that's what we're trying to do.
That's how I remember it.
Okay.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Yeah. I think we are. Now it's just as far as getting that done. And then for next week, I think the resources that were sent out is we're coming up with questions, and we talked about not just checking boxes, but having sustainable questions that not entice, I don't think that's a good word, encourage or kind of demand that we do a better job in the way that we run our committees, our boards, and the way that we kind of go through that process of how we're getting the people we are that are working for us, that are committing to projects, and that we're doing it in the most equitable way possible. That's what I sorry, I'm just kind of all over the place in a sense, but just got off the bus, so I'm just trying to recalculate.
I think there has to be accountability. So I think it does
Right.
have to be a checklist basic checklist, but also, yeah, ideas for engagement, right? And because every group is different, so they have to tailor it to their own group. But there has to be something basic, or because people don't know what to do, so they're looking for someone to tell them, to help them do that.
Yep, to help them through that process.
And so we have to figure out, we have to find a checklist, or we need to create a checklist that says, are all of your groups, how diverse is your board? How, when you're bringing in new members, is there a way of making that equitable? When you're appointing members, is there a way of making it equitable? When you're thinking of, whatever, I mean, because every group is completely different. Have you asked everyone in your group if they feel safe and, included or whatever?
Yeah. Groups are very different in the sense of what they do, but pretty much the same with the makeup and what the groups look like.
Right. They're very homogenous. So how do
Absolutely.
you, right? So how do we, so I think it's about creating kind of a platform for discussion. And then how often do you want to, if people don't check this, it could all fall through the cracks. So if you don't have people that are advocating for it, so maybe, is there a way of measuring your success, right? Like making it super positive.
No, I agree with you. I would say there's two things that we have to keep in mind if we talk about implementation. One is about whether or not the people that are evaluating themselves are capable of digging deep to be objective about what the problems are.
Right.
And then the second one is really about, once you identify those problems, what do you do about it? Because I would say, you used the word earlier that I'm going to hinge on that word, homogeneous, right? If everything looks the same right now and everybody feels that it's okay the way it is, how do you change the mindset that you need to think differently than perhaps the way you've thought in your 20 years of doing this role?
Right. Right. And have you asked others in your group, those who are in the minority, if they feel the same way you do, right? Like, I mean, it's just kind of instilling in, it's a way of educating that's happening more organically, but that there is some accountability.
Agreed. So if we talk about people and we talk about process, right? Should we think about questions that these committees should be asking themselves as it pertains to, I'm going to say equity as opposed to just racial equity alone, because I think the equity extends beyond race, right? Where people can be looking at what they're doing a lot differently and taking a different lens than what they have before.
Right. Because I think people want tools. Some people want tools. Some people don't think they have a problem. Some people don't even understand
Exactly.
it. Some people are desperate to have a tool, right? Or desperate to have others understand what they're talking about. So I think we just have to make it somewhat generic, but also specific in some areas. And it's kind of like a 360, right? What do you
Right.
think? And then what do other people think? And how are you being viewed by others? And how do you view yourself? And so it gives people a tool. It's not going to be perfect, but we have to start somewhere.
No, you're right. And the overarching theme is what I've heard back from groups that have reached out about suggestions or what to do is like they want to be more told than try to figure it out on their own.
That's what the planning board said.
Yeah.
The planning board's like, we're all from the 60s and this is all kumbaya, but where's the action plan?
So to that point, right? I think that you can lead them to the water, but they also have to drink the water.
That's
So
the accountability for the
Right.
town.
So if we start and we talk about self-reflection, right? I mean, I could tell a lot of people what to do, but I'm not sure if that's the best way to drive change, because I think most of the time when you say something to someone, the very first time they may not hear you, right? So if I glean some of the points that were brought up from the report on the Government Alliance on Race and Equity, right? There were some key pointers that were brought out in regards to what a race equity tool should do, right? And it's really along the lines of proactively seeking to kind of eliminate inequities and advance, equity as well, identifying clear goals, objectives, and measurable outcomes, being able to get community engagement in the decision-making processes, and then making sure that those who will benefit or be burdened by the decision actually looks at it and make sure that they can determine the unintended consequences, which is a complete different way in terms of how we look at things today, right? It's kind of like, this is the rule of law, this is the way it happens. So should we recommend questions that allow these committees to have self-reflection, or should we go about it a different way? Because I view it as a partnership rather than an edict.
Right. And we're empowering them to do this work. So
Exactly.
I think if you do it with questions, then that is something that is making them have that 360 view of looking in and seeing it. Are we doing this? Instead of telling them like, hey, do this, do this, do this, and then you've accomplished everything you need. This should be the way to do it. But if the question, and then we see how they answer these questions and how they commit to doing their due diligence to these questions, then I think that's going to be a better way to measure them. And then we can help course correct that. I think it could be a possibility as to telling them exactly what to do. But it seems like what Natasha's saying is the planning board wants to know exactly what to do. But having it in a question theme or question form can still get us to that desired outcome. But it kind of puts a little more onus on the group.
It can, and they can't, and they won't do it. And you know why they won't do it is because we're in meetings until 11:30 at night, and we talk about it at 11:35, and I need to talk to them about that. I can't do that. That's too crazy. So it's not that they don't want to do it, but right now there's just so much going on that it's going to fall through the cracks. So if you make
You're breaking
it
up.
easy
You're
for
breaking up,
them
Natasha.
and give them the
Natasha, hold on.
additional.
You broke up there for a
no.
second. I want to make sure I heard you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. The planning board stays, we have meetings until 11:30 at night. Anything extracurricular is really hard to do. So making it as easy as possible for them, and then adding additional components in case we have time to talk about more things, I think is the way to go.
Agreed, but I would tell you it's not a separate process. If we're really talking about making change, it's part of what you're doing. So if you're on a subject, right, and we'll come up with a question, right,
Right.
As you're discussing that, I think somebody's got to ask those questions that
During
we're
the
going to talk about here in a second in order to
Agreed.
advance the discussion. It's not something that you do afterward. It's something that you do.
No. But I'm just saying, if we're going to check up on ourselves, it's just good to have a checklist. In general, you need to have someone who's committed. And so we just had we had someone come in with a plan yesterday, 2 days ago, with the plan for the development of the assisted living across from Trader Joe's, right? And so they originally had affordable housing component, and they took it out, and they wanted to see what we thought. And we all as a group said, this will not go forward without that component. So you do need to have advocates. It so happened that all 5 of us felt the same way. But
Right,
that
right.
was my comment. Jean started it, my comment. We're the affordable housing co-chairs. Marcus is in that group. And so what I'm saying is, yes, I think, but I think we have to have a checklist every once in a while to say, have we really looked into making it as equitable, like kind of like to check up on ourselves. But I do agree that it has to be an ongoing process so that it becomes it becomes systemic, and it doesn't become an additive to the way that we think.
Okay, so I think you're spot on. I think the question at this moment is, what are some of the questions that we would like to ask?
Right. So is this something that we want to each kind of type something up and I mean, should we do it right now?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, I'd like to at least throw out some things right now, and then,
Okay.
I'm not exactly sure what the open meeting laws are, because, it would be great to kind of spend some more time on this rather than, probably an hour that we're going to spend on today. But maybe we start with, like, if there were only 3 questions that we would want somebody to ask in regards to something that they're reviewing, what would those 3 questions be?
Right. And I can, you know what, I'm gonna write it as an email because
Okay,
we're
fair enough.
recording this. Yeah, I mean, I have to tell you, because of the planning board and Marcus, because of his position as well in the select board, we really can't, we need to keep our all of the rules with the open meeting laws,
Great.
transparent.
Okay.
I'm not trying to do anything behind the scenes.
Right,
so.
right. But send it in an email to either Katie or Kate is what we can do. We're not sending it to a whole group, but an email form.
But
can
we're
go-
recording this, so this
Right.
will be open for
This is
everyone. So we
available.
can talk about it. We can send it to it's just the 3 of us and Kate and Mary Ann for right now, because we're being recorded. So, we're not hiding anything.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure that I'm not breaking rules, because I've had 3 FOIAs on me this year.
Yeah.
I don't want you to get in trouble. Let's be clear on that.
And,
Miles is
and just,
gonna hop in there and keep us honest.
so just so
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
we are recording this. It will be posted. There will also be minutes taken from either the YouTube video, or I'm scratching notes right now that can also be turned into minutes. So if
Yes.
the items are discussed here, if there's 3 questions, those will be in a documented form
Yes.
as well. And if something that's taken from the minutes is then packaged into something that can be
And because this is being recorded, I just want to say the FOIAs had nothing to do with me doing anything wrong. It actually had to do with things I was recused from and things I wasn't even part of the planning board on. So I just want to, it's just more to say that there is a request by many people to have a lot of transparency, and I'm all for it. And so
Absolutely.
I just want to make sure that we're all, that we know what we can do within things that are being recorded and things that, and not do anything outside of this.
Understood.
Just on a quick note too, logistically, there is another work group meeting tonight, also on this same Zoom channel. We would have to probably stick to a 6:58 hard stop time. And
Yes,
one
that's fine.
administrative note would just be for this group to appoint a subcommittee chair to administer the opening and closing of the meeting.
Okay.
Jay, I nominate you.
Second.
All right, fair enough.
I'm chairing enough things. All right.
No worries. So I do feel that there is a lot of value, right? Because I'm just trying to get into the questions really quickly, right? There's a lot of value in this racial equity toolkit that was put out. And because there's a lot of time taken in regards to what are the steps. And I'm going to follow that quickly, because I think that's going to get us, I'm a big fan of let's leverage what's out there and build upon that, right? So there are, again, in this toolkit, there are 5 or 6 different steps that we should be going through in order to look at, how are things equitable, right? And I'll throw out the first question, right? And it's really part of this step 1, right? What is your proposal and the desired results and outcome? And the reason why I like that statement the way it is, and I'd love to get feedback from everybody else, is because I think it's important for people to at least state what their intent is, and then ask them, if they haven't addressed it already, how is it equitable? Thoughts?
Yeah. So with that is, then I think the next statement out of that is the being vigilant on the focus of the impact. So that is, I feel like that's a money consideration, and something like you got to know where we're trying to get to in order to ask the right question, or where's the end result? What are we trying to get out of this? I think as far as putting that to the table in a way that they can direct it or check it or use it within a meeting, within the ways that we are trying for outreach, the way we are trying to I'm trying to think of different words. Sorry. But yes, but more so was what I'm saying is that with that step one, so much can come out of that, but to know what the proposal and what the outcomes are, this will help kind of spearhead us in that direction to have a plan and a purpose, the proposal, what are we trying to do with this? Like what is the end result?
I think it's perfect. Do you want to add anything onto that, Natasha?
I think saying what is your proposal might think that they have to write a proposal. I think, what if it's like, what are your goals? And,
And desired outcome. Well, the
And-
desired results or outcomes would be the goals, wouldn't they be? Or using those goals to get, so what the purpose. So we're trying to get to purpose to get
What is-
or
so what is the purpose on? I guess on what?
At
What
the end of the
purpose-
day, it's what are you seeking, right? And I'll put it in a planning board perspective, right? If somebody's seeking to change the zoning, or in the example that you used earlier, revamp this, building that's across the street from Trader Joe's into a senior level, right? That's their goal. But what are the results and outcomes? And the reason why I like it that loose is because I think our evaluation, when you say what's the metrics that you look at it, right? How does it affect housing, right? And this is where your affordable housing comes in. What effect does it have on transportation, right? What about workforce equity? I think those are, as we talk about our role and how we can push back to get people to think differently, there's a question, and then there are evaluation parameters that we can give people in order to see, does it measure up to being equitable to everybody? Does that sound like a
Right,
plan
okay.
in terms of where we're going?
Right, but so what is your proposal for equity and desired outcomes?
I don't want to be that pointed. I think
Okay, what is your
I think-
proposal?
right.
Okay,
I think I don't want to get hung up in the words, because I want to leave it as loose as possible, because you have to allow people to fail in order to help them.
okay,
Yeah.
so that's fine.
no, I understand that completely. And I think what some people are going to come back and push back on, those committees that are like, all right, that's a great question, but what do we do with that? Like our committees, not saying everybody will do this, will they come to the table with saying, well, we don't know where to go from there?
Well, no, but, right, but this is one piece. We
Yeah.
could do something that's more
Okay,
black and white, because not every committee has a new RE member.
Right.
correct.
So like for my committee, I could really push this, and others are very interested in this. There are some committees that do not have any diversity, and we have to be more kind of prescriptive, I guess, right?
Yeah, I think it's more than
Not
some.
only that, I
It's
think that
more.
may be opportunities for us to go to their meetings, right? And to help them, right? I don't think
Yes.
it's
Yes.
when everything looks the same, it's difficult to be able to think
Well,
differently.
you don't have an experience, so you don't
Right.
know.
And we
Right.
talked
Sorry,
about
Chris.
reaching out and kind of, not attacking, but encouraging and being there to support the different committees after we get this toolkit or these questions and checklists in place to kind of be there. But we're obviously, we're working on this first in order to go be there and show up to those meetings and divide and conquer and give that leadership from our end to help with this.
Fair enough. I think so. I
Okay.
think
Okay.
I think if we float that, our first step is asking that question of what is your goals and the desired results and outcome, and we're using evaluation criteria as it pertains to, and let's hit the buckets, right? Housing, criminal justice, right? Economic development, education,
Transportation and infrastructure.
transportation. All those items are lenses that people can look at in order to
Right.
determine fairness of that
Right.
particular proposal.
And I would say also with all those buckets and employment within the town.
Sure.
I feel like that's a
Absolutely.
big one. That's got to be in there for sure. And what that looks
Right.
like, what that process is. And, are we doing that? Are we say we're doing that, or are we doing that? From a town leadership standpoint and just people that work for the town in any position, but town leadership especially is somewhere where we're lacking in that department.
Perfect. So I think we've got enough of a framework to kind of put something out on step one. Let's talk about step two.
Okay.
And this is where kind of the rubber meets the road, right?
Mhm.
What's the data? And more specifically, what does the data tell us? And so that's the question. When we talk about evaluation, it is all about how much did we do and who benefited from it, right? I think that's what we're looking at when we look at the data.
And who
And
didn't? Yeah,
Pardon me?
who benefited and who did not? You know what I mean? Like
Exactly.
who benefited and who do we leave out? Or and not even not those words, but you know what I'm trying to say? Like
Yeah.
if they're doing that.
Natasha, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what you're saying. I don't have, yeah, I agree with it. I don't have
Okay.
anything else to add.
We're moving along. So I want to make sure everybody agrees, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And then the third step, we talk about community engagement, right?
Mhm.
Because if we read the room and we say, okay, the room has looked the same for forever, and what we're trying to do is be more inclusive, right?
Mhm.
Who's engaged, and more importantly, what are the opportunities to engage people that may not be here?
Right. And where, yeah, the opportunities to do that. And then also, if you feel you're doing that or something along those lines, where has it been done? Where have you reached out? Where are those touch points? And then, what has the response been? And if you've done these certain things and there's been no response and you say that you've done them and you haven't hit out, certain community boards or talked to certain leaders in different organizations and nonprofits and things that we have. And I feel like then that's where we're dropping the ball. We'll be able to kind of see that right away, depending on what people and board chairs and the town are doing to reach out, to reach out to people.
I think it's perfect. And Natasha?
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree.
Okay. So that's our eval criteria. Let's now go to step 4, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the general question is really it digs, I think, a little bit deeper after you put the community engagement in play, right? And expanded perhaps your original circle. What are the strategies? This is where you have to get very specific about racial equity and mitigating unintended consequences. And this is the self-reflection, if you will, where you have to ask that question. Thoughts?
Yeah. And is the intention matching the impact or the message? I think that's where as far as advancing it, what you're saying is that, what you're doing. And if not, then who's falling by the wayside and who's benefiting from it? Like all of this makes sense. When I think about the unintended consequences, that's what it is. It's like the intention is there, but our delivery's off or the impact is bad, or that's got to be in there as well in this step 4 in some capacity. But I think it kind of says that.
So who holds the accountability for this?
For all of these things or just for this step? Sorry.
I guess for this step and for all of them.
Well,
I heard their select board. I've heard a couple different things. I heard it's on them, but it's going to be as we go to the different groups and kind of help set them off the right path. And their reports back will be kind of, I think we mentioned, I think it was mentioned, I can't speak for getting it completely accurate about, if our working group here with Nuari is only supposed to last another year or so, then the select board and then also the leaders, and the chairs of these organizations, these committees, and these boards are going through these steps and these things and then reporting back to the select board. I think that was one of the options if our committee isn't lasting more than another year or so, our working group.
So Natasha, I'm going to ask you a tough question. Is that sufficient?
Could that happen? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just concerned. Again, right now I'm doing I've been asked by Bentley University I put a proposal and we're negotiating for us to do a safe and inclusive space. They did this whole thing on what do you call it? They did this whole thing on racial equity on campus. And one of the things they said is we need some action items. And one of the action items is creating safe and inclusive spaces. And so everyone's it's just exhausted talking about it. And so they just want action and they want accountability. So that's kind of where I am also. It's been 2 years of intense opening, of this topic, and we still don't have actionable items, and we still don't know what's going to happen, and we don't know who's going to monitor it, and if we're ever going to have any change. And so I guess that's where I'm coming from, is how can we guarantee that that the select board isn't going to change, have a different mission, and that we don't have anything put in place for it to stand stand time, I guess.
I agree with you. I think Marcus just dropped.
He's
I think
back.
he'll probably come back on in a second.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go. All right, he's connecting. I'll wait. Marcus, you back with us?
Yeah, I'm back.
All right. Do you want to say anything before I hop into Natasha's comments? I think you heard most of them, right?
Yeah, I heard most of them. I'm just transitioning to my car right now. So
no
I'm just
worries.
here. Okay.
Okay. So, Natasha, I think that let me step back and then I'll step into the comment that you just made. So if we say at step 4, we're talking about strategies for advancing racial equity and mitigating consequences, then we say there's another step in regards to implementation, right? And then the final step to which I would say, which is what you just talked about, how will we ensure accountability, communication, and evaluation of results? I think as part of what we're doing right now, as we talk about implementation, we should make an official recommendation of what that should be. And perhaps it's, it's a quarterly eval of, things, procedures, permits. When I think about the special permit process, right, or changes to it, maybe we look at some of the items, or we have a form that the chair completes, of all the items that were discussed as you're reviewing these individual items to see if people are actually making traction, or more importantly, to get a benchmark. I know it's extra work, but I think it's important to be able to create that baseline, because if you do need to improve upon something, you have to know what you're improving upon.
Yeah, it's almost like having a review.
Right.
And then some people will say, we haven't done anything to date, and they'll be put on a plan of, if this is really something that the town wants, we have to make sure that it occurs, and that it becomes a priority.
That it's sustainable, no matter who's on the
And
board.
that it's sustainable, right? It's
This lasts throughout, time, and it can be a working document where we can add and make it better, but it's something that doesn't have the opportunity to fall below the wayside, and for us not to keep this a priority. No matter
Let me
who's
ask a tough question.
Yeah.
Who is the single person that is responsible for corralling everybody and checking to make sure that they're doing the reviews in the first place?
Right this second, there is not a person.
right. So is there, I asked her one time, are you guys planning on having, if equity is such an important piece of this, are you having someone from HR who's in charge of it? Or do you have an equity person who's in charge? Right, are you gonna hire someone for that position that can do other things? It's usually in HR.
Sorry, I didn't realize I went on mute. So is one of our recommendations, as we talk about step 6, right, which is ensuring accountability, communicate, and evaluate results, one is that the town really needs to hire a DEI/HR person, and these are their responsibilities.
Yes, that's what I would recommend.
Okay. All right.
I
So
like that.
thank you. Responsibilities of that person. Do we want to talk about them, or do we want to come back to it or put something together?
Let's talk about it right now, since we're here, right?
Okay. Yeah, we've got 10
We
more
still got
minutes.
10
Let's
we got
end
10
on
minutes.
this
We've got-
note.
yeah.
I think it'll be great. You want to lead off, Natasha? Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No, I'm thinking, so go ahead.
Okay. Well, I think the first one is to ensure that, let's call this an equity review, right? Ensure equity reviews are performed by, and let's, since it is committee based, thoughts on the committee chair leading that.
I think it should be. If you're the chair of the committee, I feel like this should be one of your focuses, and within the job description of being a chair. This should be something that we put forward. Yes.
All right. And then, so if they're performing it, and we've just talked about the steps that they need to do, is there some sort of report or analysis that they have to present in order to justify that that review was completed?
Yeah, the same way that they do the water review and the schools review and all that stuff, they should have a review.
That
Okay.
is the accountability piece, coming from them. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So let's say we're going to provide equity summary. I'm just going to leave it as shorthand for now. And then as we talk more about this DEI person, right? They are the person that evaluates for completeness. And I would even say, I want to go and say peer feedback, because I think everybody should be helping each other. But is that sufficient, or should we be looking for the DEI person or an independent advisory board to help?
I think you have an independent advisory board
Okay.
to help.
So evaluate for completeness and feedback from independent advisory board.
Yep.
Are there other items that you would want the DEI/HR person to do?
Be a part of, whether it's us and whether it's the select board, I'm speaking for myself though, in unison with them, hold that biannual meetings with the different boards to see that progress, or getting that together and making sure that it's documented. It is minutes are being held. The accountability piece has a paper trail, and that we are that we are aware of what exactly is happening, and that's like in our documents, and that's in in our.
I lost you there for a second. Marcus, are you back? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I lost them too.
Okay. Marcus, if you have the ability to exit and come back, or if you're switching over, then I'll hold for just another moment. But in the meantime, Natasha, I am aware that we're coming up to our time. I do want to review where we are, because I think we have made a lot of progress in this very short period of time. And this will allow us to kind of make edits, and Marcus can come back if need be.
Okay.
Right. I would, I have made notes. I don't think that there's a way to chat in this version of Zoom.
No,
But
but
Can you
can
hear
you
me?
email the notes to everyone?
yeah, I will.
Okay.
Marcus, yes, welcome back. We can hear you.
Okay, yeah, I don't know what just happened. Okay,
Um,
like went to a hold. Sorry about
Jay,
that.
if you'd like, I can make you a host and you can share the screen as well.
All right, give me 1 second. I gotta get rid of some of these other side notes that I don't want anybody to see. It's just such a big public record.
All right.
Can't share my confidential recipes, you know?
I know.
Oh, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
want to know. I'd rather just be surprised and keep eating them. I don't want to do it myself.
Yeah.
There's no fun in that for me.
All right, Miles, if you want, I'm ready for you now. Okay,
You've been made a co-host.
thank you. I'm gonna share and get back into Word. Okay, perfect. Can you see me now?
Yes.
All right, perfect. So these are, again, I'll clean these up a little bit, but these are some notes that I've made in order to keep us there, right? We talk about step one, what is your goals and the desired results and outcome? Evaluation criteria that we kind of threw out. What's the impact on the community? Fair employment, policing, housing, transportation. This is town or government folks. Again, I'll clean these up, so pardon my shorthand. Step two, what is the data and what does the data tell us? We're really looking at who's benefiting and, more importantly, who does not benefit, right? Step three, we talked about community engagement. And more importantly, are there opportunities to expand upon that engagement, right? And it's
Mhm.
really just looking at the population of folks. I don't have anything down there for evaluations, but I'll go back and look at the notes. Step 4, what strategies for advancing racial equity or mitigating unintended consequences? And then the evaluation is quite simple. Does the intention match the impact, right?
Mhm.
Step 5 was all about implementation, making sure it's realistic, it's adequately funded and staffed. And then step 6, we really talked about how will we ensure accountability, communicate and evaluate results. We really talked about, I think there's more to this, but I think on our first pass, we're talking about hiring a DEI or HR person where we ensure that there are equity reviews, which are performed by the committee chair as they look at each one of these decisions. The HR person the chair should provide an equity summary. And then the DEI person should evaluate for completeness and or feedback from an independent advisory board. And then there's another way to where we can hold checkpoint meetings throughout the year. I think, Natasha, this is your comment in terms of making sure that there is accountability within the process.
Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Yeah.
I would
So
say,
my only not question. Oh, go ahead, Natasha.
I would just say hire DEI HR person as a town staff, as part of a town staff, because then it doesn't matter how the boards change. There's always someone.
Absolutely.
Kate will always know where she'll be responsible for it, basically.
And right, so not a lot of that, but right now there's we put in $100,000 to go to the warrant, hopefully for DEI purposes and work and things like that. And I don't know if that's going to be part of the salary for that or if that's going to happen this year. But I know on the board we've talked about it an awful lot. But even if we don't have someone in the town for that position, say this year, it doesn't mean we can't have other people help take the reins and be a part of doing that until we have somebody concrete working for the town.
And I
Speaking
don't
on
know how
behalf
many.
of myself, but that's something that I would like
Yeah.
to happen.
And I don't know who, I don't know the HR department for the town, but it could be somebody, who already is working for the town in HR.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a full-time position. It could just be someone, it could be, the same way that they look at benefits and they look at other stuff, they look at DEI. So, and it might be adding another person if they're too thin. So.
Okay. Do you want me to put hire/allocate because that's going to depend upon funding? Or do we
Yes.
want to be very specific and
Yes.
say, okay. All right.
We want to hire. We can pull the hire, but as far as allocate, maybe have to, as far as financially what we can do at this moment in time.
Exactly.
Depending on what the warrant. Yeah, it's been on the warrant getting approved by town meeting.
Got it.
Right.
Other comments in regards to the notes? Did I leave out anything? Are there things that you want to add based upon seeing this in written form?
I think this is fine for now. I think
Okay.
the biggest thing is, that we have these steps.
Understood. All right. Marcus, any closing comments before I go back to Natasha for closing comments and we end in 4 minutes? Miles, I can run a meeting, I'll tell you.
I did that for affordable housing. We ended, right, Marcus? We ended before time.
Yeah, we did all right. Yeah, we did all right. That was a pretty good meeting. But no, as far as I think this was a good first step for us. And I'm just ready for what we can do next and where we take it from here. But this is a good step. But Natasha, yeah, you're good. Good to go.
I think this is good. I think this is a great start, and then we'll refine it, and it feels like we have an action plan.
Excellent. So I'll type these up. I'll send them over to Miles, Kate, and Katie. They'll distribute them and keeping informed with open meeting laws. And then once you see them, you come back, because I think we can't have discussion via each other. So if there are any edits or things that you want to add after they go out, let the entire group know through that message or whatever, and we'll adjust it accordingly.
Okay, great.
Yeah, or just like Kate or Katie, I would say, if it's going to them. But yeah, we'll talk. Okay, that sounds good. Yeah.
All right.
So do we have to adjourn? Do we have to?
Have a motion, Miles, in order to
Motion to adjourn the meeting?
It can't hurt.
All right.
So
Right.
moved.
Excellent.
Second.
All those in favor?
And then,
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, Miles, you have 2 minutes left. Thank you.
Thank you.
meeting adjourned.